Hi, and welcome to DaHungryHubs Uncut, a vlog dedicated to the expat life and considering what it actually means to be an expat, to live an expat life. Today we're going to discuss in our second episode why to choose a life like this. There are three major things that I've come up with from research and also thinking about my own experience. There are more, certainly, but the three things that we're going to focus on today are being an expat as choosing a career boost or a personal dream. The second one would be living an expat life as the cure for xenophobia. Right? There's more to that, but in fact we're going to delve into three different areas related to that. And then of course fostering self-awareness and boosting your own independence. So let's talk about the first component, a career boost versus personal dream. Now, for me, I'm a romantic, and when I was 15 years old, I somehow got roped into the idea that living an expat life was going to be exactly what I wanted to do. 12 years later, at 27, the idea had not gone out of my mind. So for me, it was the culmination of a personal dream. But for a lot of people, they have an opportunity to go in a different direction with their career. Maybe an organization with which they work has suggested that they go abroad for 6 months to a year for a specific contract purpose. And in that circumstance, the career boost is the primary focus. If you're in that situation, I would ask that you consider not only how and why the expat life benefits you monetarily, but what areas of your work style do you want to grow, and what do you really want to see, what kind of development do you really want to see at the end of your time abroad? Do you want to actually go back home? For a lot of people who will get involved in the career boost path, they find that the bug has bit and they actually have a much better living situation or a much better career situation, either with how they do it or the monetary awards or the monetary rewards, that they receive, and going back home seems almost impossible to do. And then of course there's the psychological component of both. Now, I'll speak to the personal dream. For me, personally, what happened for me is I went abroad as part of a personal dream, and after a period of time I became actually pretty good at what I was doing, even better than what I thought that I was going to be. And so it actually led to an improvement, an actual career boost. Then, based upon the career boost, fulfilling the personal dream, my confidence increased, which led me to finally, at around 42, 43, to branch off and to create the business together with my wife that I'd always wanted to do but never really had the chance or the opportunity to do until that time. So I'd say, long story short, that the choice between a career boost and or a personal dream, sometimes they mix, sometimes they match, and sometimes they're wholly different. The second area that I want to talk about is living an expat life as the cure for xenophobia. The first area that I want to discuss is the fact that you have to learn another language. Right? For me, being pushed into the Japanese scenario, that was really complicated. In that circumstance, I was learning a new language. But now that I'm in Portugal, that's learning a new language, but it's also helping strengthen the Spanish that I already have. So you have a choice between learning a brand new language or significantly improving in a language that you've already discovered at home. And one of the important things about language, I'll say as a former educator, is that it gives you a chance to change the structure of your brain due to the fact that you are communicating in this second language. The way that we end up thinking becomes different as a result of being exposed to and or incorporating multiple languages. There are a number of studies out there. And there are also studies that say that this improves brain plasticity, and over a period of time staves off dementia. So for me, speaking Spanish as a second language or whatever third language or fourth language comes along the way, this thinking in another language other than English is actually beneficial for keeping me from going absolutely crazy when I get older, and that's part of why I decided that I wanted to engage with this process as well. Number two, creativity and problem solving. Best way I can really get into this is that when you are living in another country or another culture, problems arise. And it really requires you to be creative in your approaches to how you solve those problems. I'll give you a perfect example. Back in the day when I was in Japan, this was still in the early days when I got my driver's license. It was just prior to GPS being on all of our phones. The phones basically came out around 2007, but I was in Japan driving around 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. And GPS is so beneficial now, but back in Japan, I had to find landmarks. Right? Okay, where is it that I'm going? Okay, turn left at the gas station, then go to that little restaurant and turn right. And remembering that, that's not so much creative, but the problem-solving element was significant, to be frank. And also, when I first started out as an expat, I was using dream work as a metacognitive strategy, using not only the conscious time that I spent not sleeping to solve problems, but also allowing my brain in the unconscious state to give me the answers to some of the problems that I was facing. It doesn't require that you live an expat life in order to do that, but I will say that utilizing that kind of component in the problem-solving approach that you take to embracing a new culture and integrating at the very beginning can be useful. It's up to you. There's a lot of literature out there concerning dream work and how to apply that. And the final thing relating to the cure for xenophobia, number 3, is open-mindedness. At the end of the day, living this kind of life requires that you question your perspectives, question your cultural paradigms, question your biases, any assumptions that you may have. It doesn't work if you don't question yourself and have some form of self-awareness, which I'll get to in a little bit. The expat life is actually an excellent training ground for critical thought. And I'd really be happy to engage with questions about that as time goes by, because I myself am more of a stream of consciousness kind of guy. And when I think about open-mindedness for myself in the expat life, it would be impossible for me to have been possible. It would have been impossible for me to have lived this kind of lifestyle for almost 16 years now without having an open mind, even when I thought that I had an open mind and still had a closed mind. It ends up showing itself to you along the way. And the final component about this questioning of why to live an expat life, I think, is to live a deeper life, to foster your own self-awareness and to boost your own independence. When we talk about fostering self-awareness, I don't want to get too wonky, but Edward Said wrote in Orientalism about the concept of self in relation to other. And as a Westerner, especially, the concept of the rational West versus the irrational other, this is what Said writes about, actually smacks of these different concepts of colonialism and Western dominance and influence over these other cultures. Now, I don't mean to get too wonky, but when I was out in Japan the very first year, I remember thinking, what is wrong with these people? Why are they doing this that way? I realized later that my assumptions were wholly wrong, because the rational West concept was coloring my perception of the irrational other. As time went by, it switched, and I found that I was considering the rational East in response to the irrational West. It kind of changed my my worldview and my entire paradigm, and to find a blend of both East and West, to see the value of Eastern thought and also Western thought, how they combine to transform self-awareness, and also awareness of myself in relation to both Westerners and the other and Easterners as well. So I've been really fascinated with like the deeper, more metacognitive elements of what you do when you place yourself in a situation that is completely out of your comfort zone. You find the way to adapt to it. So at the end, we're going to talk more about these kinds of concepts as time goes by, more psychological ideas, but I wanted to make sure that I touched on some of the reasons that are out there why people choose to live an expat life. They're not all the same for all of us, but it's an ongoing dialogue that we can have to figure out what works best for us. So until next time, wishing you well and stay safe and secure.